Let's bring into the conversation Democratic Governor Wes Moore of Maryland. He's a member of the Biden-Harris 2024 Campaign National Advisory Board. Governor, it's great to see you this morning. We want to talk to you about what's going on in the state of Maryland a bit, too. But you are, as I said, here on behalf of the Biden campaign. So what was your reaction to what you saw last night? And how much of a threat do you believe the White House and the president view Ron DeSantis to be?
Well, truthfully, I didn't watch the launch. It doesn't sound like it went too well. But I think part of the challenge is not just a style question, right? It is a substance question because Governor DeSantis is asking people to believe in the Florida model. Well, what the Florida model is, it's getting into fights with your largest employer and having some of your largest corporate partners within the state then deciding they're going to pull billion-dollar projects from your state. That the Florida model is injecting politics into a decision that should be between a woman and her doctor. That the Florida model is deciding that our children should not be reading books like The Bluest Eye and Beloved. That our children should not have access to books about people like Hank Aaron and Roberto Clemente, and that teachers should be under investigation for having the audacity to show a Disney movie that features a gay character. So I think there's a style challenge that he's going to have to figure out, but it's also a substance challenge where I think where I know here in Maryland that people are going to reject the idea that the Florida model is something that we would want incorporated into our lives.
Governor Moore, good morning. When I speak to Biden campaign officials, many of them view that, Donald Trump, they can see the polls too, he's still the favorite right now. But they say that even if Trump's not the nominee, they believe they're going to be effective to paint other Republicans, particularly they mentioned DeSantis, as a MAGA disciple. They believe there is a through line there. Make that case for us, because DeSantis is going to say, look, I'm not Donald Trump. I didn't do these other things. I just give you the policies you like from Trump without all the baggage. Make the argument for us, the Democrats.
Well, I think the argument is that we should focus on the things we're actually getting done. I know that when I decided to run for governor here in Maryland, we ran with our North Star saying that we were going to create pathways for work, wages, and wealth for all Marylanders and not just some. And when you think about what's happened and the record that the Biden administration has had in partnership with us, where just for the state of Maryland, that we've been able to activate and deploy upwards of $1.9 billion because of the Infrastructure Act to go towards our roads and our bridges and mass transit projects. That in my first weeks of office, we had the president here in Maryland where we were announcing a project for the Frederick Douglass Tunnel that's going to be responsible for upwards of 30,000 jobs here in the state of Maryland. That right now in Maryland, we have a historically low unemployment rate. And so when we talk about pathways for work, wages, and wealth, when we talk about economic growth, and we get away from all the culture challenges, I think the Biden administration has a very strong argument to make. And I can tell you right now, as the governor of one of the states, having him as a partner has mattered in our ability to move as fast as we are economically as a state.
Governor Al Sharpton, one of the things that we need to see from the Biden-Harris team for 24 is how you excite and deliver your base voters out. Clearly, there's been those that have said, well, there's not enough excitement. Today, 3 years ago today, George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis. And I remember how Joe Biden, who was just then running, came to Minneapolis. I was in the room when he met with the family, and he's really made strides to bring Americans together and to deliver on some of the promises. We couldn't get the George Floyd bill through the Senate. He went and did an executive order. He's done other things. You talk about infrastructure that has helped Maryland. He's also made sure that a lot of that went in communities that had been neglected before. How are you going to exercise the base with the campaign to say that as we try to unite Americans, we have kept our promises or have tried to deliver for blacks, for Latinos, for people that had been left out of what was going on out of Washington, particularly under the 4 years of Donald Trump?
It's so true, Reverend, and I think the thing we're going to have to do is also be able to articulate that so much of the progress that we've been able to see on the state level has been because we've had strong partnerships on the federal side. That the reason that we've been able to do things like both energize a base while not alienating everyone else is you're seeing how these actions are actually working for everybody, and being very intentional about it. You know, I look at what's happening right now with the conversations around book banning as one example, where we have a party that's literally deciding that the way that you are going to gain market share is by having a significant portion of the population not understand their history. You know, I was just down at Morehouse this weekend giving the commencement address, and the point that I made to those, you know, to the graduates was our history is our strength. When you know what you've come from, you know there is nothing in front of you that can stop you. And as Ralph Ellison said, when I discover my history, I then will be free. And so the ability for us to show that the economic growth that we have been able to have, that the fact that so many challenges that we are seeing within our community, that we can have a unique ability to be able to push forward economically, to create safer communities, to create institutions and institutions of higher education that are teaching young people how not just to be employees, but how to be employers, that these are all things that are happening and are possible because we are also going to be a society that honors history, that honors those who came before us, and knows that our strength comes from those who built up the foundation that we're standing on currently.
Governor, a week from today, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says the United States government will lose the ability to pay its bills if there's not a deal on this debt ceiling crisis that is looming now on the horizon. It's kind of talked about in political terms a lot. It's abstract probably to a lot of regular Americans, but you are one of the leaders, and leaders like you will have to deal with this if it happens. The people in your state were the ones who will suffer the consequences. So what would be the fallout of a default, and how are you preparing for that?
It'd be catastrophic. And I tell you, be catastrophic for this reason. You know, when people talk about what are the things about the job that are most complicated, the truth is, in the state of Maryland, just in our first months of being governor, we've been able to do things like make Maryland the first state in the country that puts a pathway towards free dental and health care for all members of the National Guard. That we've been able to make Maryland the first state in this country to offer a service year option to high school graduates. That in the state of Maryland, we're moving fast. The thing that keeps me up most at night are the things that we don't have control over. And that's things like, is Washington willing to pay its bills for charges it's already made? We've got to depoliticize this, because this is not political. This is purely economic. And what it's going to mean for a state like Maryland if we allow ourselves to go into default, to allow ourselves to show that we're not trustworthy to pay our bills, is things like tens of thousands of veterans in the state of Maryland will lose access to medical care. It does mean things like, economic growth that we've been able to show in the state of Maryland, that we've been, as a stagnant economy for the past 8 years, that we've been able to have measurements of economic growth. Now, even in these first 5 months, that kind of growth is going to stop, because it's going to decrease things like access to capital. It's going to decrease things like the opportunity for low and moderate income communities to be able to gain access to banking facilities. So this is a real challenge that we are going to have to deal with, because in Washington, things continue to be politicized. We've got to depoliticize this issue and make sure we're focusing on the people of our states, because we as governors are taking on the brunt of the fact that we have parties that are not able to come to a conclusion.
All right, Democratic Governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, as always, we love having you. Thank you so much for being here today.
It's great seeing you all.